The National Energy Regulator of South Africa has extended the deadline to submit written comments to determine new electricity tariffs. Eskom has proposed a total increase of 32.66% in 2023-24 and a further 9.63% in 2024-25. For more, we are joined by NERSA Member of Electricity, Nhlanhla Gumede. Nhlanhla, good evening and welcome.
Good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon. Good evening.
Thank you so much. Let's go straight into it in that there's been an announcement to an extension of this submission of written comments and registration for public hearings on this methodology for the determination of tariffs and prices in the electricity industry. Who's this extension aimed at?
Well, we're actually looking to invite all stakeholders, basically not just the suppliers of electricity, that is the IPPs and other generators. But we're looking to invite also the consumers, who are the ones that actually have to pay the actual resultant prices that are charged. So in essence, we're inviting everybody to participate in the development of this particular methodology that affects all of them.
I want us to touch specifically on consumers, on citizens. I mean, what does this mean in the bigger scheme of things, that citizens can also have a say in the pricing of electricity going forward?
Essentially, the Electricity Regulation Act, although it says it regulates the electricity supply industry, the primary beneficiary of any regulatory regime is the citizen, is the economy, it's the consumer. Because in the end, the government is not just regulating an industry to make a particular player rich, but it's saying that in a normal environment where the competition was, if there was competition itself would actually regulate the prices. But it then says, because a particular industry perhaps is dominated by a single player, or a particular industry has got certain peculiarities, including maybe high barriers to entry, whatever, it then says, I need to come in here and actually give the suppliers a tariff that reflects their costs, but also give consumers prices that is also, it recognizes their needs, but also reflects the cost that they actually bring to the suppliers. It's supposed to balance the two.
But how much sway, if any, do honestly consumers have, do citizens have in these hearings? How much value is the voice of the consumer, the voice of the citizen, when it comes to such decisions?
Look, in the past, we've really just, and this is what we are trying to actually change here. In the past, we've really just been regulating Eskom revenues. We've just been saying Eskom would come with a costs and say, these are my costs, and they will say these costs have been prudently incurred, and I require a particular revenue to cover them. That's in essence what we did as NERSA. However, that is clearly suboptimal in the sense that in public hearings, for instance, you mentioned at the start of the interview the current price increases that have been applied for. In the past, really, NERSA's hands have been tied in the sense that we listened to the consumers complaining that they can't afford this, they can't do that. But unfortunately, the current methodology is only looking at the supply side. It does not balance the interest of both parties. However, going forward, we want to actually introduce a regime here which then says, yes, you need to have cost-reflective tariffs in terms of suppliers, but you also need to have prices in terms of consumers that reflects the costs that the consumers bring to the system, but also takes into account their demand patterns, as well as take into account their affordability and the competitiveness that these prices bring. It's not the case at the moment, but that's what we need the consumers to bring to bear. But we need consumers' voice. We can only do so much as the regulator. For some sectors, we may have some data, but for general consumers, we don't. We need consumers to come to the party. come to the table.
And how do then consumers come to the party if that is the case? Because I can tell you that in any hearing, I don't think there will be any citizen of this country who will come to a hearing and be happy with where we are. Most of us, if not all, will say that electricity is way too expensive. And in recent years, we've never seen a space where electricity is either remaining, but it's going up in terms of what NERSA and Eskom is talking about. But in this case, how do then citizens make sure that they participate in these hearings? And again, from what you said, it doesn't look like there's a guarantee that our participation will make any major change. Nhlanhla?
Well, let's start like this. There's a nice saying that I like that says, until the prey have got their own storytellers, the story of the hunt will always be from the hunter's point of view. So what I'm saying here is that we have a regime which, in terms of price setting, energy price setting, is looking at the costs purely from the supplier's point of view. Now, we don't even, for instance, even looking at just normal consumers. If somebody comes to us and says, if you were to increase the price by 10%, I can't afford it, we would then have to say, on what basis are you saying this? Because the supplier would have come and said, these are my costs, and in respect of this cost, I require this revenue. Now, in respect of consumers, to the flip side, if someone says, if you increase the prices so much of electricity, you will render my business to be uncompetitive. I'll have to shut down business. But we don't have that detail. So what we are asking is that in the past, we appreciate this. In the past, in our pricing regime, we had never integrated the two flip sides of the coin, which is the supply side, as also looking at the demand side, so that when we then set an equilibrium price, it must be a price that balances the interest of both parties. This is what normally happens if you're running a business, because you also need to understand your consumers and understand their affordability, understand their true needs. That when you come up with a commodity that you want to sell, you need to peg it. You know that you would have wanted to sell your jacket at 1,000 rands per item. However, if at 900 rands per item, you'll be able to sell everything rather than at 1,000 where you only sell half. I think within a business, you regulate your prices like that. We have never done that in terms of regulated prices. That's what we are attempting to do. But it's not going to be easy because the consumers really don't come to the party.
How do we come to the party? So as you say, citizens, consumers need to come to the party to make their voices heard. We spoke about the extension of the submission of written comments. How do citizens and consumers do that?
We have postulated in the methodology that we've published for public comment what we call Principle 2, where in essence all we are asking is that citizen, please indicate to us, firstly we need to understand your demand pattern. We need to understand what you need the energy for, what you need the electricity for, when do you need it by, and then we may be able to say, once you understand that profile of your need, we'll be able to say what would be the best approach in terms of pricing it such that you get the best value out of that. That's number one. Number two, we then need to then say, in the consultation paper, we're requesting the consumers, the citizenry, as well as big business. We're requesting both to say, please come to the party and indicate to us what is the role played by electricity in your business or in your own expenditure as a household, so that we then have a good idea of, say, for instance, if consumers spend out of the income that they make, they spend 20% of their income already on electricity. You know that by increasing it by 10%, you are increasing an item that is 20% already on there. But if you don't have that idea, it's very difficult to even negotiate with the other parties, because as I'm indicating, there is no business which only looks at one side at just increasing prices and doesn't worry about its consumers. But in our case, because we don't have a countervailing force, which is all of the information on the demand side that allows us to actually interpret and be able to then say, well, at this particular level, your sales, Mr. Producer, are going to drop anyway because people are going to move away, either because they are rendered uncompetitive or because they find an alternative. And therefore, you need to temper down something on your side, which is control your costs, for instance.
Okay, Nhlanhla, thank you very much for coming through to talk to us. And I'm hoping that citizens and consumers will actually go through and make our voices heard, because I can tell you that there's not a single South African that is happy with the prices that we are paying for electricity at the moment.